What is up, guys? JR Juggernaut 1 here. I'm going to be presenting you today my Masked Hero Beat deck. This is a deck I've been doing a lot of testing with. I really like it. I got a suggestion to run this from Team Minority's channel. Well, they didn't directly suggest it to me, but I saw this and I was like, I really like the concept of this deck. A lot of people have been hating on Mask Change. Not hating per se, but just saying it's like inferior. And while I'm not totally convinced that this deck is the best hero deck to run, I do still think it's worth it. It's worth a shot, and it has a lot of strong advantages to it. So for that reason, I would say give this deck a shot. But I will also say this build is not finalized in the least. I have a lot more testing to do with this deck, and there's just a lot more work that needs to be done. So for those thinking, this is what I'm most likely going to run nationals, make these criticisms. No, don't. If I was taking this deck to Nats, if I decide I was going to take this deck to Nats for sure, it won't be for another few months at least. So keep that in mind. But without further ado, let's get to this deck. Alright, so as a Masked Hero Beat, like, you guys kind of know what it does. You've got the Masked Hero, the new Masked Heroes that made this deck better. You have Masked Hero Acid, which blows up spells and traps. You have Masked Hero Dion, which after destroying a monster by battle and sending it to the graveyard, lets you search a level 4 hero monster from your deck and special summon it. And then you've got the previous two, Masked Hero Vapor, which is water, also water like acid, and can't be destroyed by card effects, and Masked Hero Goka, who gets 100 attack points for each hero monster in your graveyard. That's fire, and Dion is earth. So you've got water, fire, and earth to use for Mask Change. Mask Change I'll get to in case you don't know what it does in a bit. So we've got one Stratos, triple Neos Alias. Generic 1900 beat stick is good. Not much more to really say about it. I do play Gemini Spark in this deck, but I also play this card because it's just a good, solid 1900 beater that I'm really liking right now. Just as a standalone monster, don't really need to draw much to make this card work. It's just generally good. Obviously, you got to run water monsters though, so I run one Ice Edge and two Ocean. I really think Ocean is an underrated card. I think when you combine this, when you have this in a deck with many ways to protect it, and you also have Mask Change, a lot of good stuff actually happens with this deck. It's just very powerful. But Ocean's 1500 attack decent. I don't think Bubble Man is better because Bubble Man's a combo card. This card just works well on its own, and I've used this guy's effect a lot to get like Stratos or just another hero back. It's really good. It shouldn't be messed with. And the last two heroes, Wildheart, Proxy, of course. Yeah, I don't have one. I should, but I don't, because just being able to get around traps is good. Being a target for Mask Change, also good. Just very good card overall. It's just its 1500 attack is underwhelming, and there are other Earth monsters I run, which I will get to very shortly. And the other one is Heat. Unlike the other targets I have for Mask Change that aren't fusions, this one is also a beat stick. So it's not as strong as Alias, but that's fine. It's just, it's powerful enough to put in some work, to put more work in than something like Ocean or Wildheart, which I like. And the last two cards, also proxies, but I'm not putting them face down to make things so I can make things a little less confusing. 2 Max C. I'm mainly using this as a deck thinner right now. I'm not so sure it's like the most effective card in general, but at the same time, I like just at least, most of the time I'll end up finding this to be of good use. I do, however, think that it's very much possible that I do think it's very much possible though that these will come out at some point if I decide Max C's aren't worth running, period, depending on how the format is going, what decks are popular and such, like what I expect to face. Okay, that's the monsters. It's 11. Not much I would really change, but again, it's open to, you could make changes. Spells, we've got one Rhoda, 2 E-Call. I'll admit, you could, like, as much as I might like another e-call to make this more consistent. I find that when I was testing with 3 e-call and 1 rota, you just draw into the e-call, the multiple e-calls a lot, and that's just annoying because you really only need 1 to make the deck work. Of course, drawing multiples can be nice if they have like an answer to the Stratos, like Warning or something, but it just tends to be that, you know, late game, this card is just kind of doesn't really do much for you, so. Triple Duality. Kind of got to run this because of how powerful, just because of all the power cards you want to get with this card. This is going to make sure that this is going to increase the likelihood of you reaching those cards, and they're going to be very important to your deck. Also, if you get Mass Change with this, it's a quick play, so you can still use it during your opponent's turn, which is pretty sweet. But speaking of the power cards, you have technically 8 from this deck. At least I classify them as 8. Triple Miracle Fusion because, well, first off, this card is awesome for heroes. Second, you fill up your graveyard very easily thanks to Mask Change, so this is a very good card to run as a result. But yeah, it's a really good card. It's always been good. But when you can fill up your graveyard so easily, that's why you run 3. And then Triple Mask Change. For those of you who don't know, this card is basically you select 1 hero monster, face-up hero monster you control, send it to the graveyard, and special summon a masked hero from your extra deck with the same attribute. That's very good if you could see that. So basically, and just to be clear, this does not send as a cost. It targets the monster as a cost, and then if that monster is removed from the field, Mass Change fizzles. But what this basically does is it makes Warning, it makes this card sort of laugh at Warning because it's like it just becomes a 1-for-1, and just yeah, you don't lose any. These are just cards where you can play them and you don't give a shit about Warning. That's just how it is. And then of course the last 2 cards I'm referring to are Double Super Poly. Very iffy about this card right now because on one hand, heroes are becoming more popular, as I've heard from Long Beach there were a lot, but more importantly, not more importantly, but at the same time, we're facing the problem of Dark Worlds and Zectors, which are like some of the deck's worst matchups are just becoming more popular, and that's just making this card, you know, more dead as a result. So whether you'd run 1 or 2 is questionable. I do, however, definitely wouldn't run 3 for multiple reasons. One of which being, a lot of times you're going to run 3 only expecting like if your opponent's only running monsters of 1 attribute, you're most likely not going to be able to fuse with them twice. 3 times. Well, yeah, 3 times, sometimes not even twice. So don't play this. So then don't run 3 copies in that case. For the remaining spells, though, we've got Double Gemini Spark. Alias is very searchable, but this card's live very, very often. But the thing that prevents me from wanting to play a 3rd is 1 Forbidden Lance is very popular, making this a -1. There are a lot, and 2, there is also a fair amount of chainable cards. Plus, this is not a card you want to rely on too much for, making awesome plays. It's a disruptive card, so that's amazing, but it has its limits. And speaking of this card, 2 Forbidden Lance. This is a very multi-purpose card. It's probably one of the best cards in the deck, and people just don't realize it. One of the best cards that doesn't produce a fusion monster. That is, Forbidden Lance just says, okay, no, I'm gonna make your monster weaker than mine. I'm gonna make sure my monster can't be removed from the field, or I'm gonna make sure it's just all around awesome, awesomely immune. One of the coolest things to do is when you bring out Acid. After they've allowed the Mass Change to resolve, if they try to Starlight Road, Phoenix Chain it, you just go Lance and they just go Troll, and you just go Troll Face and they go Rage Quit. It is very awesome when you can do that. There's just many ways this card helps you, being able to protect your monsters and also weakening their own. Hell, I've used this card to keep my Ocean alive, and as a result I get a plus. It is amazing because they'll go into the battle phase with their 1 monster and just not think, oh, I'm going to have this to deal with their monster. But yeah, it just catches them off guard. And then the last 3 spell cards are Book of Moon, Monster Reborn, and Dark Hole. I do not run Heavy Storm. I know people are saying, like, oh, you should run Heavy Storm. It's like, it's even with you're running a backward heavy deck, Joe Giolando did it. Yes, you can. But I still prefer not to run it because I set so many cards in this deck that I'm just kind of like, well, I don't want to play it then, you know. I don't want to play Heavy Storm then. So yeah, those are the spells. You're obviously running a mostly spell heavy deck. I think there's about like 20 in here, something like that, give or take. But yeah, very useful. And then for the traps, we've got the Solemn Brigade. Yeah, you pretty much got to play this. I'm pretty much gonna play this in any deck I play this format, because I just want a fairly back row heavy deck. You know, I don't want to play a deck like TG Agents where I'm running little to no traps. I want to be able to stop my opponent's plays. Double Torrential. This deck is pretty good at capitalizing on this card. I would say just, you know, do your best to make sure you're not losing much advantage though off of this, because you are running a small amount of monsters. Sometimes you might want to play this just when you have a Vapor on the field, Master of Vapor. So, yeah. One Hero Blast. I'll admit this card is probably the trap of your deck that is most likely to be dead or not usable, but it's a +1, and when it works, it really works. So I would at least play it for that reason, but I just wouldn't bump it up to 2. One Starlight Road, because you do set a fair amount of back row, even though you're not running a ton of traps. And last but not least, tech card, Proxy once again, Compulsory Evacuation Device. I don't like Zen mains. I don't like Gachi Gachi, even though, of course, that's not, you know, Gachi Gachi isn't a card I really expect to see much anymore. But, oh my god, this card is powerful. Just everything it stops, and once we lose priority, I'm probably going to bump this up to 2. That's the other thing I was thinking about making this deck. Like, you know, cards like Compulse, they just become that much better when you can just eliminate them from the field. So, yeah. Yeah, not much else to say. I don't know why I'm getting distracted. But yeah, that's the deck. I will not show the side and extra deck now because, yeah. Oh, and by the way, my Maxis, I do have them. As I said, I'm lending them to a friend for now, so that's why they're not here. But, yeah, I'm liking this deck a lot right now. The main advantage to it is that it's powerful. It's just sort of dependent on whether or not you draw enough spells or traps. Like, this is one of those decks where you want to draw a few, like 1 or 2 monsters and a few spells and traps to kind of back them up. I guess that's not always the case, but usually if you just get your recall and you get your Stratos, you've got 2 monsters, if you've got enough power cards to go along with it, you're good. You're sitting pretty well. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I will get more vids up in the near future. No idea when, but we'll see what happens. Peace out, everybody.